we have the millennial on another side. So I want to start with that. And Horace, let's start with you first. The black community over the years I've seen has so many things that at times separate us. At one point, person of color was basically black, and we that expanded into Latino and Asian, and there's just a number of things that separate us. What is going on with this divide between the young and the old right now, Horace? Do you feel like the young folks understand what the old have gone through to pave the way for them and to hopefully open doors and avenues for them in the future?
Well, I have to say, brother, that we have historically, as a community, been separated by a number of things, mostly by class. The bourgeoisie blacks are different from the brothers and sisters who live in the street, and that they have always, that one of the challenges of social change is to make sure that everybody gets on the train together. And unfortunately, particularly in Massachusetts, that's not necessarily the case. That hasn't been necessarily the case. And one of the consequences that we saw was, with the pandemic, we got to see up close and personal all of the various inequities that exist in our community, from the percentages of people who've gotten sick and caught the virus and died, from the heroes, the bus drivers, the trolley drivers, the people who stock shelves in stores, the people who clean diapers at senior homes, is putting themselves at risk every day. I think that one of the things I've noticed about this particular, since all this stuff happened in March, is that there has been a coalescing of the community, because it became obvious to everyone that that inequities, employment, housing, healthcare, and education were not only exposed to the general public, but it was exposed to the world. And I think that there's a real sense now that I think there's a real coalescing, if you will, of black people coming together to try and articulate and identify strategies and ideas, by the way, led by millennials, mm-hmm. By the way, if you're paying attention, say Gunn, Eric Estevez, Monica Cannon Grant, that all these, millennials and younger people are stepping up. They've kicked all of us old people to the curb, which is great, because it's their turn now. And they're looking for strategies and ideas of trying to get, try to obtain more accountability from the police, to try and obtain more response, more action from local, state, and federal governments. And they're doing the job, and I just feel that we, as the older generation, need to support that, need to help them as they make mistakes as they go, need to love and support them with the successes that they have. I think the day is different now than it was 6 months ago, because I think the visions and attitudes and egos, were far more prominent than they are right now. I think change is coming, and it's still slow, but I think there's a group of young people willing to impact that and make that change possible, like your daughter, of course.
Well, we're going to definitely hear a mouthful from her, because our argument yesterday was all around millennials and the old folks. Myself, what do you think, Traci? Do people in our generation, my generation, listen enough to millennials, and do you think that millennials really have something to offer that can bring black folks further in today's society?
Definitely. So like we were discussing yesterday.
Oh, that was a discussion we had, and that's what you call it?
A very dramatic argument that we had yesterday about millennials. Just being a millennial myself, I realized that we have differences and stuff, and I think it's just because the generational wise and how we were raised, basically. So the generational, we're not going to say it's old ways, but there's kind of a different process. You guys had to do a lot more than what we kind of have to do to be heard or seen. And it's kind of now we have the voice, but it's just we need people to just listen and just try to make some change, because during COVID, you can see a lot of elderly people weren't taken weren't having the proper care that they needed. But a lot of people in these offices are people of that age and are older. And we millennials and even younger generations, they see things like that. They see that there's a problem. They see that there's a matter. But the problem is that the people that we're trying to get our point across to is still in their ways that they learned. And I think it's just hard for both of us to understand, but I think we can all agree as millennials, or what is your generation again?
We're just called adults. Adults.
Older people. Older people.
Come on, Horace. Come on now. I like adults better.
I forgot the term.
Old fogies, huh?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that we're all disappointed on a matter, especially within the black community, whether we're any age. But we just all need to come together and figure out how can we all come to an understanding and figure out how we can better ourselves as a community, because we only have each other.
There you go. You know,
I agree. I agree. I agree with her wholeheartedly, because the thing is, our generation, Tracy, has done a terrible job of one of the things that generations are supposed to do is prepare the next generation for emerging leadership, which means that we also have to share our history, share our experience, share our knowledge, share the issues that we worked on, what successes we had, what failures that we had, and how, and with ideas as to how to go forward, because the reality is you can't impact change unless you know the history of what went on before you.
That's right.
If we did our job well, our young people would have the strategies and the tactics and the knowledge and the skill. They would know how the legislative process works, because if you're talking about making systemic change, you have to change the rules of the game. The rules of the game are the laws. So, you have to teach people how to play in that, and it means teaching them strategy, campaigns, tactics. You have to teach all of it. You have to show all of it, and allow them the opportunity to do their thing and make mistakes. I fully expect this generation to demand far more. I mean, one of the great things about that came out of, if you could say a great thing that came out of the pandemic, quite frankly, man, is that, people woke up and they are very, very clear. They are not going back to the way things were. There's no way they're going to deal with rogue police officers, and there's no way that you're going to hear a thing about, well, we got 5,000 cops, but we got, who are all good people, and we got 13 bad cops. Well, no, you don't. You have 5,013 bad cops, because 5,000 aren't jumping on the 13, then they're just as culpable as the 13.
Sure.
So you got people who are, the schools and public education. And no longer are they going to expect the white women to come from Newton to tell the public school system how they should do things better. They want to explore that on themselves. They want to expect more leadership from our black and Latino caucus. They want to see something. They want to see change.
Sure.
They want to see leaders pull folks together and say something to the fact, what do we want, black people? I mean, case in point is we've been working all over the country through Black Battle Power to get black people to come register to vote.
Okay, let me. Horace, you just led me into 3 different conversations that I had on this. Let's just stick right there where you're going. This goes to both of you. What do we do to get black people to vote? Do you know how frustrating it is to be a person that works hard in the community, that wants to see things for our community, and I realize the importance. At times, I don't care if you vote for who I want you to vote for. I just want you to vote, because if we can show numbers and volume, it gives us strength and gives us power. Tracy, what do we do? Tracy or Horace, what do we do? How do we get black people to vote?
Go ahead, Tracy. You go. You take that one, honey.
That's kind of tricky, because I remember just going back, going to the Shelburne Community Center a lot. I remember
Shout out to the Shelburne.
Shout out to the Shelburne. I wanted to write a letter. I think this is when Marty Walsh first came into office, but I just wanted to write a letter just basically discussing the issues and stuff, and I was talking to the guys that were working out, what would you want me to discuss in the letter, and they just feel like there's no change. There's not going to be any change no matter who's in office or anything like that. So I feel like a lot of times people need to see these politicians more in the community and see more actions, because they may be doing a lot, so much for the community, but we don't really see much or anything like that. We just see on the news, like, our family members going to jail or different buildings being built and stuff. We don't really know sometimes in the community where all of these things are coming from. So if we get an understanding and we actually love the person and feel like, you know, everybody in the hood wants to feel somebody real, like somebody that connects to them. If you can actually find somebody that can connect you to that, and as well show their actions than just their words, then I think we can get people to vote. But we have to show our faces in the community. We have to keep keep thinking alive.
And Horace, I've never seen anything like it when Obama ran for office. Everybody in there, brother in there, son, everybody was on board. And I'm very proud to say, even though my daughter wasn't old enough at the time, since she's been 8 years old, she's been going into voting booths with me. And even though she wasn't old enough, she came in with me, and I let her check it off for President Obama. So she got the chance to vote for him through me. But I just want to say, what do we do to get people excited again, like that era?
I got to tell you, brother, on the contrary, I mean, the work, and I think Diane Wilkerson is doing some national work as well, would probably back me up on this, which is like, I have to tell you that there is that one, black people are coming to vote in November. In cities and states around the country, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, black folk are coming out to vote. There's been enough investment by organizations such as ours. There's a score of organizations working on stuff, Indivisible, various organizations around the country who are in our communities working with. Harry Belafonte's done a brilliant job of motivating black ministers, trying to get 100% participation out of the churches. On the contrary, what we're trying to prepare for and try and get people prepared for are voter suppression techniques, right? For instance, they've already let us know that the post office, 6 weeks ago, they told us, don't count on the post office. So, okay, pay attention, people. Don't count on the post office. We've been here since 1619. We've been here since 1619, standing in line. We'll do you just fine. You can do another day of standing in line. If we got to be there for hours and whatnot, ministers are making sure that, like, if Skippy is a diabetic, if it's standing in line for 2 hours, give him some food. If Mrs. Johnson's been standing in line and there's sciatica starting her, give her a chair. Jimmy Tingle's working to get comedians all over the country to go to targeted wards and precincts to make sure that people have the best possible experience. And I'm working with Gus Newport right now to put together a document that talks about what are some of the suppression techniques that that these white folks will be using, how you should respond to it, and the critical numbers that you should call if you see any of it. So we're trying to prepare. There's so many people we've been coming that we're trying to prepare them. We were successful in helping to get Philadelphia get $10 million grant. So there's enough people to count the ballots and enough people to be poll watching. So no, on the contrary, I think people are coming. I think the question really is, we loved Obama too. And there was a ton of people that came out. You're absolutely right. But the reality is, one of the dirty little secrets about black folks is that we don't talk, we have class issues. And we don't talk about that much. So even though Obama got elected, he made us proud, and Michelle and the kids, wonderful human beings. The fact is, when you look critically at what Obama did for black people, the answer is not much. Now, he did a lot for all them black Ivy Leagues, the Sister Sevens, all them college graduates.
You messing with my boy? You messing with my boy Barack now?
I'm not messing with your boy. I think you just got to be honest, brother.
Okay.
And the reality is, in this election, just like in the Obama election, it is the masses of black people. On the 55th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act this year, and one of the great honors is that it is the black community that indeed will decide who the next president of the United States is going to be. And
now, be clear, Horace, when you say it's the black community that's going to decide.
It's the black community.
Does that mean they have to get out and vote? Is that meaning, what does that mean?
We have, in the words of John Lewis, you have to vote as if your life depended on it, because it does. You have a choice in this election. We could continue this experiment towards democracy, which this country has been based upon, or you can vote for an authoritarian, and be willing to deal with the fascist state later on.
Sure.
You can vote for somebody who at least you can do business with, because the reality is we're all not fired up about Biden. Biden was certainly not my choice for president, but in light of the current reality, I know that we could do. You need a rational life form in the White House as opposed to what we have right now.
Sure.
Because you need a rational human being to do business with.
Let me ask this question, Horace, because there's certain questions that black folks have about issues that are black folks' questions. We kind of keep it to ourselves. So that's what I'm going to ask you right now. You mentioned Biden. Now we have this black woman, Kamala Harris. All right, I've said before that I've had the opportunity to meet her on several occasions when I did some work in San Francisco. She was just she was a DA at that time.
DA, right? Yeah.
But, one of the things that I think about, and I know black folks think about this also, one of the questions that I had to myself when I saw her, one of the things I say, because you see successful blacks at times, men or women, and they're married to the opposite race. They're married to someone that may not be another black person. I know that we were all sitting around on my deck, because you can't come in my house now because of COVID, but sitting on the deck talking to my friends, and we said, I wonder if she's married to a white man. Does that make a difference to black folks when they come out to vote? Whether she is married.
We don't have a choice at this point.
Yeah, I mean that's what. Thank you, baby.
Because she said when she first came out, as saying that she was going to be VP. First you're black, and then all of a sudden you have all these different races, and you're just not fully black, and it's just why can't you just be black? Why can't you just be black?
Well, she pulled the Tiger Woods on us. She pulled the Tiger Woods.
I saw the show one time when Obama came into office, and then they were like, white people, if you don't like the black side, just vote for the white half. I'm like, just do that. If that's the case.
I don't care. Honestly, bro, I don't care if she's married to a roach.
There you go.
Okay?
There you go.
This is, all I know is that for the last 3.5 years, we have had a man that has almost started World War III, whose inaction, has caused the death of almost 200,000 people, 65% of them African Americans. So that tells you everything you need to know about the harm and damage this man has done. From shutting down the federal government, which the majority of workers are black people. Shut it down for 2 months without incomes, cutting Medicare, cutting food stamps, cutting unemployment, all these to the bone, bone. And I don't care if she's married to an embryo. It's like we need to have someone in the game that we can talk to.
Sure.
So with that said, listening to your beautiful daughter. With that said, the fact is that one of the things that we should be talking about, knowing full well that class is an issue. She's AKA, which means the Greeks are going to be taken care of well in a Biden-Harris administration. The point I'm trying to make, my brother, is there are things that the overwhelming numbers of black people, who are the ones who are going to be called upon to make this change, they need to know in good faith, what are the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things they are going to do to improve lives of black people within the first 6 months of their being in office.
That's right.
And I don't want to hear a damn thing about you're going to take down statues, we're going to change the names of military bases from Confederates. Who cares? Is it helping your daughter pay her loans?
That's right.
Of course not. Is it helping her?
One thing I wanted to say too, for someone that does marry, is involved in an interracial marriage, you gotta give people a lot of credit, because it's definitely not the easiest thing to do,
I just took it off.
it's not the easiest thing to do, as well as is having interracial children. That's going to be an issue either. So at times when people take on that task, I want the voters to know that think because she's married to a white man that she's not fully black. You need to stop that nonsense. This black woman has worked hard.
I don't think that's the issue, though.
I
I don't think that's necessarily the issue of her being half black or anything right now. I think the issue is that we know Kamala's past as a former prosecutor.
That's right.
And black people see how many black men she's incarcerated. It's kind of like, it's just like Bill Clinton, he sent all them black people to jail.
Here y'all go. Y'all mess with all my people.
I'm just saying, and like, and black people were quick to forgive him and stuff, because they was ready to vote Hillary in it, and even he was supporting Obama.
We have a caller. We have a caller. Pastor Dan is on the line. Pastor Dan, are you there?
Yes, sir.
How are you doing?
Oh, just lovely.
There you go. Where are you from, Pastor Dan?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in the Collinwood area for 7 years, then East Cleveland, and pretty much all over as I put it, the deep, dark part of Cleveland.
Okay.
So,
talk to us, Pastor Dan.
Well, again, I guess what I'm hearing is what I've heard from you specifically was you think that Joe Biden as a candidate or as a president would be better than the president we have. And I'm wondering, are we basing that on a Joe Biden plus or a Donald Trump minus? And I know you understand the question.
I like that. It's for myself. You know what? Not even me. Let's ask our panelists. Horace, what do you think about that?
Well, I think I absolutely think that, with all due respect, Pastor, that Donald Trump has been the worst president in the history of this country. He's not a president; he's a dictator. One of the things that Donald Trump has done is he has exposed all of the weaknesses of modern democracy. He has exposed Congress has hearings, the Democrats have hearings. So what? They have hearings. I'm going to do what I get to do. And no one checks him off. His campaign is openly racist. It's openly hostile to black people. It's genuinely about selling fear to others, and because white kids, by the way, in Portland and Seattle, not black ones, are having demonstrations because of Black Lives Matter. And that justifies for him using law and order in cities around. There are troops in my city, which is my home is Philadelphia. In black neighborhoods, not white ones, but in the black ones.
Sorry.
Plus, he also plus all the things that he has done to hurt people socially, economically, and indeed spiritually. He's created the schism among people of faith.
Yeah, that divide is definitely there. Let's hear from our young person. What do you think, Traci?
That's all right. And to add on, this man is comfortable basically lying to us about a virus, a pandemic that we're going about, that he literally has recordings of him saying that he knows about it. You literally knew that you were risking hundreds of thousands of lives, and millions of people have died. Million, right? I feel like worldwide though.
I'm not sure the numbers, but it's high.
It's high. Like you were okay taking these people's lives. You didn't come to become a president to better this country. You did it to save your 1% of the wealthy that were just trying to make billions of dollars, which a lot of these businesses during this pandemic made billions of dollars. A lot of states didn't even have the proper COVID testing. I was in Atlanta, and they didn't even have the proper COVID testing just for people to do anything. They ran out of tests to the point New York had to send them. As a president, why would you ever feel that it's not okay to protect the people? Well, because a lot of us didn't bring them into this office, but the people that you're supposed to defend, these are your citizens, your constituents. Like,
Pastor Dan, are you a Donald Trump fan?
I am not a Donald Trump fan. I am a supporter of the President of the United States.
I hear that.
There are people who have given me tons of grief about my stance on Donald Trump. let me be clear. There's been many points stated here, so I'm going to try to see if I can remember them all.
Sure.
I don't have the luxury of taking notes at this point in time.
Right.
Let's start with the easy one. As a president, it is your job to keep the country, as stated. You take an oath to defend and protect the Constitution. You say Donald Trump is the worst president we have, and I would ask you to, there's been 44 presidents before him. He's 45. Logically, philosophically, and just by nature, it is not possible for him in 3.5 years to do worse things to this country than 44 other presidents. Hang on.
Let Pastor Dan finish. Let Pastor Dan finish.
Hold on.
Horace, hold on. Let's let Pastor Dan finish.
Because, again, if you go logically and by the numbers, we had a president in office, President Woodrow Wilson, who we segregated the military and the government. There were the military and the government were desegregated when he came in office as a strict policy by inference and by action. He resegregated the military and the government.
If I may, my friend, I know that we can be here for the next 5 hours arguing about the pros and cons of every president. George Washington took the teeth of slaves and put it in his mouth.
We're going pre-civil rights here.
About what's wrong with presidents? Okay.
How about if we go post-civil rights?
All I'm saying is that when we make statements like this, it is difficult to substitute fact from reality. Not separate. That's what separate. All I'm trying to say is, can we
That's
deal?
no problem, Pastor Dan. I have no problem with telling people that this man is the worst president in the history of this country. I stand in solidarity with every academic, every presidential scholar, every historian.
Okay, but my question is, I'm sorry.
Okay,
but my question
let's let the millennials speak.
Why are we competing about who is the worst president? At the end of the day, years are going by, and we're still going through the same BS that we were going through years ago. So that shouldn't matter who's the worst president. Right now, like I said, we need to focus how we're going to. If you're a Trump supporter, I don't really care. Like, I really don't care. You're just not my cup of coffee. But if you're a Trump supporter, if you're a Trump supporter, be a Trump supporter. But at the end of the day, do not ignore the things that this man has caused. The only thing that I've given I'm not even going to give that man credit, because we've been angry and we've been doing this forever. And excuse my language.
All right.
Things need to change. That's it. Things need to change.
Let the host say for a few words really quickly. Pastor Dan, I want to thank you for your call. I'm going to give you the opportunity to say one closing statement. I want to say, though, Pastor Dan, I also respect the office of the president. I respect that office no matter who's in office. Now, I would like to see Biden win this. Don't get me wrong. I did not vote for Donald Trump, but because he did win the election, I do honor that. So I do hear you on that point, Pastor Dan, because I think if we don't do that, I think that we cause more problems later in the future. Pastor Dan, one more statement, and then we're going to move on.
Okay, last statement. When it comes to who wins and who loses, I am on record as saying I believe that it is the Lord God who sets up who is going to run this country. I believe that God, as a pastor and as a person and as someone who has studied the scriptures, I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but the Bible clearly states that God calls to positions of power who he will for his reason.
Wow.
So as long as God has put him in that office, I support him in that office.
Pastor Dan,
now, in this election, when it comes up, we'll know that either God has had enough of him or God has not had enough of him.
It's just that simple to me.
Pastor Dan, I want to thank you for calling in. I appreciate your comments. One thing that I've learned, folks, from being around a number of ministers is you don't question Scripture. No, one Scripture to me, that is law. That's it. Once it's Scripture, I've tried that with Reverend Walls several times, and he quoted Scripture and just shut me up. I want to break this conversation up and offer just a little levity.
That's the separation right there.
Separation.
That's the separation
because one thing that God gave us was free will, and my
Absolutely.
free will suggests that I don't necessarily buy what Pastor Dan said. And I fully intend, when I close my eyes and go up in the sky and meet my Maker, we're going to have this conversation.
I hear that one. I should have had you on the last show. I should have had you on the last show. And one of my questions was, what would you say to God if you met him? But let me ask you another question. I want to ask a little trivia just to break up this conversation a little bit. Horace, you're a political guy. Do me a favor, Horace. Name the 3 black governors in the nation's history.
You got me.
I think there was Doug Wilder.
Wilder, number 1.
Wilder in Virginia.
Yep.
I was going to say Bradley in California, but not Bradley.
Who was number 2?
Wilder. There was a guy in Washington State. I forgot his name.
Who was number 2? Come on, I know you know number 2.
Give me a hint.
He's
in Massachusetts.
Governor Massachusetts.
Oh, you mean Duval?
Duval, that's number 2.
Duval, all right.
And who's number 3?
I think the brother in Washington State. There was a black man in Washington State. I think was governor.
No, actually, the 3rd one was Patterson in New York. Remember Patterson?
That's right, Dave Patterson.
That's right. So
I forget that. He's a friend of mine.
Come on now, look at that. All right, so let's. I'm sure he's listening. So I want to ask my daughter. One thing that I'm very proud of, all the Lithcutt children are good basketball players, and she definitely was a good ball player herself. She could have went on to play college ball, but she went on to focus on academics, which I'm happy about. But Traci, I'd like you to do me a favor. In the NBA, I want you to name 3 white players in the NBA.
All right.
3 white players in the NBA.
All right. Luka.
Okay, we'll take the first name. Luka is 1. Luka, okay, that's 1. Who's number 2?
Is his last name Schroeder from Miami Heat?
Okay, I think it's Schroeder, but we'll give her that one. That's 2.
Close
number
enough.
3.
No. NBA, right?
There's a guy from the Celtics.
I know. I never paid attention to him.
I was hoping she had the name.
Wait. Can I say Steve Nash?
Okay, yes, that's he's a retired player. I just wanted to break it up a little bit just to see where our knowledge base was and see if we're too excited. Let's go back into the questions. I can't believe how fast time is going by here. So I want to ask folks, in the civil rights movement, it was definitely apparent that movement was about voting rights and about women. But it seems as though that and my daughter and I was having this conversation, that when white folks got involved in that debate, it seemed as though that conversation it went into so many more directions, and it helped some of these laws pass. Should we embrace white folks into our black culture? What do you think?
I don't know if you embrace them into your culture. I think that there's something to be said about having critical allies. And the history of social justice movements in this country has always been the idea of the role of white people is to save black people. And there is no place that has manifested that better than Massachusetts. Massachusetts is the sea of people saving us. Who will never hire black staff, who will never put black people on their boards. I think what is taking place and what has happened since the pandemic, and I think that going back to the civil rights movement, I think that Martin Luther King, Roy Wilkins, and some of the elders, they had white allies. They had white people helping them strategize. But they were never out front. They were never the organization that came out, we're here to save you black people. It wasn't them. That changed after the Freedom Summer, when Bob Moses brought in white college kids to help organize people in Mississippi on the right to vote. And they were very successful. The problem was that they never left. They got they liked it so much. They liked it so much they stayed, and that's why all these organizations, right? All the various, social justice groups in Massachusetts. I love white people. The point is that once this pandemic is passed, now this pandemic has come. I think what your daughter is saying, and rightfully so, it's a new day.
That's right.
Change has come.
That's right.
Okay, no more. If you're not going to be an ally, get the heck out of our way.
There you go.
Because we're going to lead. We're going to lead the liberation struggle of our people, not you.
There you go. I'm not even going to give her a chance to answer this question because I have a ton of questions I want to ask, and the time, I can't believe it. Traci, let me just ask you a question. So, once again, during the civil rights movement, protests were a major thing in this country that really made the elected officials and other people around the country. We didn't have the internet then. It made other people around the country see what was going on in the South and in other places that were segregated and still had Jim Crow laws existing. The protests that recently happened over black folks that were killed by police, just protests that have been occurring, are those worth anything? Are those good things for our country right now? And will that take us to another level of understanding and opportunity for black people in this country?
If you want me to be completely honest, I think that's up to the generation coming up right now because... Oh, sorry. I think that's up to the generation coming up right now because I was fully supporting like protests and looting because it's like we're angry, like there's this past history of like Oklahoma, the bombing in Oklahoma, and that was nothing but black businesses being burned down and stuff. So the protesting and looting just seemed like anger that we had to show because we're tired of just watching deaths and we just not being able to do anything about it. I'm sorry, I think I just caught off guard. What was the question again?
No. Should our protest did do anything for our country? Or did it do anything for black people?
They definitely do bring out attention because when the George Floyd situation happened, I think there was a protest in every state in the country, and so that just showed you like there's openings, but since it's protesting and looting is cool, but it's just like now we need to really get to the basics. Like we need to prosecute these people that are killing these people. Breonna Taylor's killers, the girl who was killed in Louisville, they still haven't even been prosecuted or anything. Like the attorney general, a black man who supports Trump, won't do.
That makes a difference.
Yeah, won't do anything about it. So it's just like, and to be honest, I've spoken to cops working at my prior job in Atlanta, and they tell me, the protesting and looting, they get paid more and more and more, and it's just like you're getting paid more to hurt us, and you're the reason why we're doing this in the first place. And it's just like I see why people say defund the police because we pay them all this money and they don't even have the proper training. Like people in Marines, they literally tell you the last thing to do is kill, but and they have months of training, but these people that probably only have like 3-4 months of training, you're supposed to tell them how to deal with people with mental issues, people who live day by day. No, you can't.
One thing I want to say too is about this show that we're doing is we want to educate folks that really don't know everything or not much about who we are as a people and as black people. And I think that this is what this day and era around internet and social media and protests has done. And lucky there is social media now with everything that's going on. So I want to ask this particular question. Let me just shift a little bit, Horace. One thing that I really never thought about that affected me as a black person is driving while black. I never really thought about it until someone talked about it again on the news. I heard about it and I thought about it like, how do I feel at times when a police officer is behind me? How do I feel at night when he's behind me? Maybe I went out to dinner and had a drink or two. How do I feel? Do I feel like I have to be on guard driving while black? Horace, do you get that feeling?
It goes back to what Traci was saying, and you talk about protest, and the dilemma with protest is that if
doesn't have a strategic component attached to it, if it doesn't have an ask or a demand of what you want, then a tactic is just, a protest is just simply a tactic. Expressing your displeasure, expressing your anger, the only way that change comes is if the tactic, moves your strategy forward. In other words, what do you want to change?
Sure.
What is the thing that you need to see change?
Sure.
And again, the conversation gets to the question you just asked about driving while black. Now that I'm an old man with a bald head and what little bit of hair I have is gray, and I got a turkey neck, I don't worry about the cops. I don't worry about the cops like I used to 15 years ago, who used to stop me routinely, even just walking around the corner, going to the Tedeschi store to go buy a pint of ice cream and hoping that my wife wouldn't find out.
That's worse. That's worse than the police stopping you.
Yeah. Because you're a diabetic, you're not supposed to eat that stuff. So, if there really needs to be one of the things we as old heads need to do is begin to start doing this training and the educating of this young, emerging group of millennials who are committed to change. Because, they have to understand, and I think you kind of see some of it, like Marty came up with his proposal, his task force came up with a proposal to deal with the police. That's something that we should have demanded.
Sure.
And they're talking about having hearings.
Sure.
And I think a strategic moment, for this new emerging leadership is to be in Marty Walsh's world.
Sure. Let me just keep us moving along as well. One thing I wanted to say about something that was mentioned. I myself personally don't believe in defunding the police. We still have a number of issues that occur in our community, one being homicides, and we need as much support as possible. Eric, our producer here, said he was stopped by the police a couple of days ago. Tell me about that, Eric.
Yeah.
Do you think that was about driving by black, or were you speeding, or went through a red light or turned somewhere?
I was driving with my godson. He was actually driving. And we were going down Washington Street going towards downtown, and a white cop, he was in the car, looked at us, did a U-turn, and just slowly started following us, which made my godson nervous. So I was just like, just drive like you're ready. You're not doing anything wrong. Just drive, right? But he kept focusing on the cop behind us, and he ended up running a stop sign, and that's when he lit him up and pulled us over.
Wow.
It
makes you nervous.
They do that on purpose.
Wow.
They make a reason to stop.
And it's like when they pull you over, like I remember one of my friends got pulled over. She ran a stop sign too, but he pulled us over, and the way that the cops were putting the flashlights in the cars, they was already treating us like criminals, and they looked stupid because we were just a bunch of girls just sitting in the car trying to get home.
One thing before I go into this next question, Eric, I want to say, Eric, our producer here, he's also a professional magician, folks. Eric, I would have been impressed if when they pulled you over, if you in the car disappeared. If you could have done that, then I would have been impressed with your skills. Right. Let me just ask one other question coming up here because we're running out of time. Public school education. We already talk about the difficulties that our children have at times in the public school system. Now there's no playbook at all for this new COVID style of education. What do we do to support? I don't want to criticize our leaderships and superintendents around the country for not doing whatever. They need support now from the community to figure out how we educate our black children. What do you have to say about this, Horace? And what would you say to folks that have children, that don't have children, that live in the community? What would you say to them about what needs to happen during this upcoming
season? I really genuinely think that that this is an opportunity to bring, this is a time when experts and parents and stakeholders need to be sitting down and brainstorming together. This idea that the superintendent is Lord and Savior and is responsible for coming up with all the ideas. This idea that the labor union, the teachers union, has, with their agendas and stuff. I mean, the truth is, if we're going to be candid and real honest about things, is that the truth of the matter is everybody talks about educating our children, but the
last group of people that are remembered when it comes into the educational system is our children. Because teachers union have their hustle, the principals have their hustle, the women who serve the food have their hustle. So all these other interests are in play before they actually get down to the kids. So now the kids can't physically go to school. It is. I find it one of the most insane things I've ever seen is not convene communities, not convene, bring educators and parents and others to come to the table to figure out what is exactly the best way to do this.
Sure.
Some people, and some communities have done that. But the Boston model is, we always have people up high and the people down on the bottom have no voice. And so, and the consequence is that our young people can't go to school, our parents can't go to work, and with other cities and communities in California, they set up these little conclaves, if you will, of education tables where kids can go to and they can learn together and socially distance stuff. They try to be creative to try and address how to educate people, not Boston. And I don't know why. And Boston is supposedly the best public education system in the country. However, less than 2% of African American males get their college degrees within 8 years of graduating from Boston Public School.
The one thing I want to say to folks in Boston, and Tracy, I want you to address that question. I'm going to switch to another question. I want to say to folks, let's give this superintendent a chance and give her the support. Let's not fight her. Let's get to the table, like Horace said. Let's go to the table. Let's bring resources, whether you have children in the system or not, and let's support them. There are a lot of new people working in the school administration that are super bright and super concerned about our children. Let's reach out to them. Let's knock on their doors and let's give them help. Traci and Horace, we only have a few minutes left. Horace, let's start with you. Who were your mentors in life that really helped you guide your life to bring you where you are now? Because you are definitely a positive role model in our community, have been around for years doing positive things, and have been able to sustain that reputation of doing things because you keep doing things. Who were your mentors? And Traci, I'd like to hear about you.
I have to tell you, my mentor wasn't my father. That's for damn sure. But
my daughter better not say that.
but I do have to say that I've thought about this. As you get older, you start thinking about your life. And the people who radically changed my life, I think, were two football coaches. One when I was I was a 9-year-old, when I was 9 years old, and my high school coach, who was my friend until he died, and someone that I could confide in and talk to. My father was very abusive, so confidence was not one of the things that would come out of an abusive household.
I would have never known you had a lack of confidence, Horace.
No, but he instilled that in me. He instilled the idea of not quitting. He instilled the idea of using this most beautiful thing, my brain, and work out problems. Because he said 99.9% of problems are answers. You just need to figure it out. Sure. And to this day, so John McEnany, wherever you may be, heaven, hell, or whatever, I love you.
I like that.
I love you.
Traci, how about yourself? How about you? John, we love you too. If Horace loves you, I love you too, John. Traci, how about yourself?
A mentor? I don't necessarily have
someone outside the household.
I was about to say, I don't necessarily.
Make it easy, Horace. Make it easy for Horace.
I don't necessarily have a mentor because, I felt like a whole village raised me. I had aunts and uncles that all teach me life from different views. But a person that I will always say has stuck in my head since I was a little girl is my Uncle Reg, who passed away when I was younger. My Uncle Reg did everything.
One of the leading arbitrators in the country, in the world.
He could do everything. He was a lawyer.
But you may not know, when Nelson Mandela was let out of prison, Uncle Reg he was one of the attorneys that went to South Africa to help them develop their constitution. You didn't know that about
there's so many things I learn about this man every day, and he lived his life until he actually had colon cancer, I think.
Yeah, it took him quick.
But he just was just such an articulate man, like just the way that just from what I remember of him, like he was just a great guy.
And if you want to talk about power couples, he was married to Dr. Dolores Aline, who is one of the leading pediatricians in the country. They were a powerful couple. Let's end with a little levity. Horace, I have a trivia question for you. Horace, I need you to name the first black cartoon, Horace. The first black cartoon on television.
On television. Let's see. Is it Boondocks?
The Bulldogs. I can tell you watch a lot of cartoons recently, haven't you? No, that answer would be
Fat Albert.
There you go.
That was great.
Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Tracy, really quickly, Tracy. What black athlete did the Crip Walk after winning her match?
You told me that. Who Candace Parker?
I have no. What is going on with my black people? We don't know the black history.
Who?
No. Serena, you got to look at it. Hey, I want to thank the two of you for coming on the air. We have about a minute left. No, Horace. I'm going to give you an opportunity to close up with whatever you like. How much time do we have, Horace?
I just want November 3rd is the most important election in our lives, brother. The Voting Rights Act in 1965 gave us the honor to choose who our next president's going to be. Let's take advantage of it, and then let's make sure he takes care of poor black and working people.
There you go. I appreciate that, Horace. Thank you. Tracy, how about yourself?
Thank you, brother.
I love you, Horace. Love you, brother. I'll see you at the gym.
I love you too, brother.
Hey, but let me just ask one question. You said you played sports. What sport was that?
Oh, he was my football coach.
Okay, because at the gym I was looking at those knees. Those knees didn't look like basketball knees, Horace. They look like football player knees.
Yeah.
No. I did that too, bro.
My daughter just looked at me like, aren't you the one that just had knee replacement? Talk about somebody's knees. Tracy?
That's okay. I had a new hip, so don't worry.
I'm going to just keep it short and simple. Black Lives Matter. Game 7 tonight, guys.
Oh, yeah, Game 7. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Once again, this is Boston Black News. That's on Boston Praise Radio and Television, the only black-owned and licensed radio and television program in New England. We need your support. If you want us to continue to bring all of these wonderful things that Reverend Wall and Karen Wall have worked on for so long, come on now, come down here and support us financially. Come down and develop your own program, but we want to see you here. People like Horace Smalls, that are folks that have been paying their dues in this community for so long, and my daughter Tracy, who I'm going to have on the air more often with us, talking from the millennial point of view, starting her life. You all need to hear these stories. You need to hear what's going on. And I want to definitely thank Pastor Dan from Cleveland from calling in today. We want people to understand that this is an international program. Once again, this is your second favorite host on the station. I'm following Ronnie Bell. This is Tracy Lithcutt. Have a great weekend. We love you, and God bless.
Well, this is Brian. Until we worship again.
You gotta be on here more often.
Me?